This is Horror Podcast.
Welcome to This is Horror, a podcast for readers, writers, and creators. I'm Michael David Wilson, and every episode I chat with the world's best writers about writing, life lessons, creativity, and much more. Today is the second part of my conversation with Ross Jeffery, and in this one, which we recorded a few months back in September, we talk about a writing challenge that we are both doing. A challenge in which every 2 weeks we exchange 10,000 words of our current work in progress. And fast forward to now, and we are both well into this, and have currently read and exchanged around 70,000 words of our forthcoming novels. So we are both really deep into this, and for Ross, I believe his is gonna weigh around 130,000 words, and for me, maybe about 110,000. So, despite being deep into this novel writing process, there is still quite a bit to play for, as it were. Now, if you are unfamiliar with Ross, he is the Bram Stoker Award-nominated author of a number of books, including The Devil's Pocketbook, which will be re-released by Clash, I Died Too But They Haven't Buried Me Yet, Tome, Juniper, and Only the Stains Remain, to name but a few. So before I welcome Ross back to the podcast, a quick advert break.
Cosmovorous, the debut cosmic horror novel by R.C. Housen, is now available as an audio experience. Featuring an original dark synthwave score, this story will take you to the next level of terror. Come hear the story that readers are calling Barker Meets Lovecraft, a phantasm-style cosmic horror adventure, and a full-bore, unflinching, nihilistic nightmare. Cosmovorous, the audiobook by R.C. Housen. Come listen if you dare.
It was as if the video had unzipped my skin, slunk inside my tapered flesh, and become one with me.
From the creator of This is Horror comes a new nightmare for the digital age, The Girl in the Video by Michael David Wilson. After a teacher receives a weirdly arousing video, his life descends into paranoia and obsession. More videos follow, each containing information no stranger could possibly know. But who's sending them, and what do they want? The answers may destroy everything and everyone he loves. The Girl in the Video is The Ring meets Fatal Attraction for the iPhone generation. Available now in paperback, ebook, and audio.
Okay, with that said, here it is. It is Ross Jeffery on This is Horror. So, before I mentioned that Josh Malerman has deemed you the master of grief horror, and I would say from the last few books that you've released that this is not an inaccurate label. How do you feel about being termed the grief horror writer?
Quite blown away. Very British of me to say, isn't it? Yeah, like it's a genre I kind of fell into. I don't know why. I think what pulls me into it is that grief, to whomever it happens to, is completely different and completely unique to that person. So there's many avenues you can go down and you can still strike a chord with someone. It happens to everybody. At some point, you can suffer loss, which I think connects with readers, helps people process stuff, helps people prepare for what might happen, how they might feel. And I think I try to be as empathetic as possible when I'm writing about grief, because I know it is a challenging and a deeply kind of deep subject. And I kind of use, like, it's weird being called the master of grief horror, because I have suffered grief, and it has affected me, but I haven't suffered as much as other people. Like I will speak openly about this bit. So when I was very little, my auntie disappeared. She just vanished one day, and I think I was like, 2 or 3, and like I'd never knew her really. Like I couldn't remember her. But I watched how my mother kind of suffered through that, and not knowing where her sister was, and also my uncle, like not knowing where his sister was as well, and he was quite young at the time, my uncle, and like I remember growing up that my mum spent ages kind of talking to like Samaritans and like other kind of like people, just trying to find her, and like, you know, I remember her doing lots of kind of like sending like photos and things like that, what she looked like, and, you know, if anyone sees her, all that kind of stuff. And when I was, I'm trying to think now, 15, 16, I was at my parents' house, and there was a knock at the door. It was Christmas Day, and there was a knock at the door. We were like, well, we're all here, like, who's that? And my mum went to the door, and I could hear her crying. And I was like, what's it? And then I came around the corner, and there was this woman standing on the doorstep, and I didn't know who she was. I was just like, who the hell's this? And it was my auntie, and she'd come back to see us, and like we let her in, and she was like bawling her eyes out. She was a bag of bones, but she was bawling her eyes out, and like, and it was weird because I then just had this family member back in my life who I didn't know about, and then we spent like a year or so kind of reconnecting, and like she'd come with her partner who she left with at that point. Like back then, she'd left to go to Brighton or somewhere with him, and just completely disconnected from life, and didn't want to know our family at that point. And yeah, we got to know her, and I was like, oh, I've got this auntie back that I never knew I had, and it's brilliant, it's great. And I think it was within 2 years, she died of a heroin overdose. Knowing that, looking back, you could tell that she was an addict at the time when she came back to us, but I didn't know that then. And yeah, basically when she went away, she had this partner, and they just spent their life kind of being addicts. And I don't know what happened that made her come back, but she came back, and that was the first kind of taste of grief that I ever had, and it stung quite a lot, because I thought that I had this person back in my life that I really wanted to get to know and like just grow up with, and because I've got quite a small family anyway, so having someone else come back into it was incredible. And then yeah, and she died, and went to the funeral and everything, and it was kind of a weird funeral because there was lots of looking back at it, there was lots of addicts there, but I just thought they were just kind of like these her friends and whatnot, but it was quite obvious. And yeah, and that's really been the only grief I suffered until a few years back when my granddad died. And that was like two pieces of grief, and they affected me, and they've influenced the writing, because both of them were completely different, and both of them I grieved differently, and that interested me. And I was just like, oh, that's a peculiar kind of. You think grief would be the same all the time, but it's not. And I just find that really interesting, and that's kind of what I just started writing about. And I think the first book in the grief series is like Only the Stains Remain, and that was written. I work in kind of, previously I've worked in kind of like social services and schools and things like that. So I've been on lots of kind of panels dealing with kind of child abuse and neglect and things like that. So I've heard firsthand of the horrors of it and kind of what happens. And I love writing about not boogeymen and kind of like Dracula or mummies and things like that. I like writing about human monsters. And that's what takes center stage in that book. And that was, again, like that book has done phenomenally well. Like I think it's my best seller. It's a novella, and I, like Juniper, I hold nothing back in that one. I've had to listen and sit in on meetings about things that happen in that book, and I think people should know what goes on in the world. So I wrote about that, and it connected with so many people. But I had one review that came back that was, a survivor of abuse, and they said that once they'd read that book, it actually made them feel seen, because they'd experienced some similar things that happened in the book, and the way I'd rendered the characters, it was kind of like they were reading about themselves and kind of how they dealt with their trauma and their grief and all that kind of stuff, which is incredible. And to touch someone so deeply like that with my words, like I could have just stopped with that one reader reading it and just been like, right, that book has done its thing. That's what I wanted it to do. And I've just got sucked into it. And I don't know what happened. Like all the books I wrote since then. So yeah, you've got Only the Stains Remain, Devil's Pocketbook, I Die Too, But They Haven't Buried Me Yet. An unreleased book, but a few vials more, deals with grief. Harvesting the Nightmare Fields has got grief in it. So there's like, I'm in a kind of like probably like a 6-book series of kind of, or genre of grief horror. And yeah, to be called the master of anything is quite humbling in itself. But like, yeah, the master of grief horror by bloody Josh Malerman, New York Times bestselling author, who's not blowing smoke up my arse, but actually means it. And like to hear you say that as well, like it's, yeah, I can't quite believe it. This little guy now sitting in Wales, but just writing, has been able to kind of claim that moniker of being the master of grief horror. Is quite weird and wonderful and slightly peculiar. But yeah, it's cool. Not gonna lie.
And so you've given me a dilemma now, because I want to talk about Only the Stains Remain, but I want to talk about, what happened with your auntie too. So I think let's go the auntie route to begin with. So to just set the stage, I mean, how old were you when she disappeared, and then how old were you when she returned?
So I was probably around about 3 when she disappeared, and then I was 15, 16 when she came back into my life. It was quite a developmentally, it's quite a big time. So I felt it, I think, a lot more than I would have if it was later or earlier.
And so, I mean, with your mother as well, what did she assume had happened? Were there any signs that she might have just decided to take off on her own?
From what I've heard, and you know what families are like, from what I've heard, it was just one morning she just wasn't there. Like she'd just gone. And I think she must have been like 18 or 20. So she was an adult. But she just up sticks and just completely disappeared. No forwarding address, nothing. Just, I think my mum had gone to the house where they lived and there was no one there. And then, because my mum was the older sister, and then she was just distraught. And again, like back with this kind of grief thing. Every year, and I don't think my mother has cottoned onto this, but myself and my wife have, that every year at the same time where we found out that she had died, my mother's mood drops. So, and it's every single year at the exact same time, but she's never kind of come to that conclusion on her own. It's just that we've been like, oh yeah, this is coming up, so let's keep an eye on her, because it's going to, and it's that kind of stuff, all that kind of like passive stuff that's going on underneath someone's being that is tied to grief. I just find us like really interesting to delve into. But yeah, so there was no idea why she did it. And I don't think when she came back into our lives that she ever kind of really expressed why she did it. And I think it was mainly the joy of having her back that made us not ask those questions. Or I didn't ask them because I was, I don't know, probably playing on a computer or something. But I don't think my mum really delved into much of it, the reasoning behind why she left. It was just something that was done.
Yeah, I mean, this is the thing with real life. There aren't necessarily kind of neat conclusions and neat explanations for things. And of course, in, the movie, in the story version, you'd be asking, why did you do it? And you'd be expected to have some sort of resolution or explanation, but real life ain't like that. And God, I mean, what a terrible thing for all of your family to have gone through. And I wonder as well, do you think that influenced your decision to work in social care to help other people in these situations?
I don't know, actually. I just see, I could be paid a lot of money to do another job, but there's something about, because I've worked for charities, I've worked for lots of other things, but like the current job I do now as well is I work with homelessness and vulnerable people, and it's just something about being there for someone that I just love. And when you get a breakthrough and you help someone, it's more than what money could pay. And I'm just thrilled that I'm in the position that I am, that I can help people. And some of that, like, and like, I'm not outside of grief. Like, I still have pangs of it. So the other day I had someone message me about their son. I was at work and I had an email, and it was a mother reaching out to say that her son has left home and she believes he might be in the area where I work, and sent me a picture of him and was like, if he turns up, could you please let me know? And like, I just need to know that he's safe. And it just brought back like those kind of like, almost like a whiplash of kind of like, oh yeah, that's what my mother was doing when like her sister went, like, and if I could help that person just know that their son or daughter is okay, then, not giving away, GDPR and all that bullshit, but just to be like, message and be like, I've seen them, they're okay, or I've seen them and they've been fed today. Like, that's kind of just what a privileged position to be in. But yeah, I don't know what it is, but yeah, I just love doing the job. It's not for everyone, but and yeah, maybe that's been imprinted on me since that moment. I wouldn't be able to tell you, but maybe it is, and I like that.
I mean, you're talking about the benefits of the job, but I mean, it's got to take a toll as well. Are there things that you have to put in place for your own protection, for your own mental health and well-being? Because you're dealing with difficult situations every single day.
Yeah, it's it's challenging. There are avenues I can go that, like, if there is a particular thing that happens or something like that, I've got avenues, so counselling at work and stuff I can access and things like that. But also, my wife's amazing, so I can come home after a bad day and just be like, well, this happened today, and then just kind of unburden on her, which is great because, you know, she then just reaffirms what I'm doing is good, and that, you know, you can't save everyone, but you can at least try. And yeah, it's good. Difficult, but good. You know, I've seen like lots of very bad things. Like my first week at work, because I'd left the job, or I was made redundant from a job working in schools and building communities and things like that. And I took this job up at the homelessness day centre, and then my first week on the job, I had someone come in and hit someone with a cup and cut their face open, and then I had another fight in the. And I was like, I've come from somewhere that's not like this, and then I was like, there was a fight, and I had to break that up. And then to round the week off, I had someone try and commit suicide in one of our toilets. I say tried, they did a bloody good job at trying. And like, I opened, like, they were calling out for help, and I opened the door, and like, I have never seen so much blood in all my life. Like, it was, sorry, there should be a spoiler about this. But there was like blood everywhere, and I was just like, shit, like, get me some towels, we need to save this person. Like, and yes, fortunately we saved them. But like, I remember, so I'm going to dive into this because it's just crazy. But like, he'd cut his wrists from like wrists to elbow on both arms, and it was just everywhere. And then I went in, put towels around them, staunched the blood flow and everything. And then he was just looking at me like with these vacant eyes, and I was just like, right, I'm going to be here, I'm staying here. And then like, he tilted his head to the side, and he'd also slit both sides of his throat, and it was like he had gills, and every time they would just open and blood would just be pouring, and I was just like, oh my goodness, like, but yeah, he was saved on that day, and, you know, we did a good job. But yeah, like, it's difficult, but, you know, it's that also kind of like most of the gore and the horribleness that I write and the graphic nature of it comes from things that I've seen, which I think they're horrible to witness and whatnot, but I think it helps the writing come across as authentic because they're things that I've seen and I'm not just making it up. But yeah, it's a challenging job, challenging kind of experience, and yeah, someone's got to do it, right?
Do you still have contact with this person who tried to commit suicide? Do you know if they're doing any better, if they got the support that they needed?
So we had contact with them. So because I didn't know them at the time because I was brand new into the role, but apparently they had used the centre for years, and one of the colleagues that I work with said that they probably did that here because they knew it was it sounds stupid, but because it's a safe place and they know it, that actually they needed help, and they came to us at the time that they were at their lowest. And yeah, so once they left us, went to hospital, found out that they had they'd been sectioned, and then we kept up contact with them, sent one of our workers to go and see them in hospital, and then they were moved to a kind of what's it called, assisted kind of care facility afterwards. And then I think about 6 years ago they moved into their own kind of accommodation, and they're doing well. They haven't been back, so for us they've kind of like sustained their accommodation and they're doing well. And then we just wait, hopefully, for one day where they just pop in and just say, I'm doing all right, which quite a lot of them do once they're housed and homed and fending for themselves. They come back and just thank us for kind of being there when they needed us. But yeah, and those days are very special, and they make the job worth it. Like when you see people coming back after being so low and broken and at the end of their rope, and we've done something that's helped them move on, or get help, or be able to process things that have happened in their lives. That's something money can't buy, and that's why I did a job.
Oh my goodness. I mean, you're living a remarkable life. You have real purpose, and your writing is amazing. But this is the real shit. This is what it's kind of all about. But you're simultaneously saving people with your day job and through your writing as well. I mean, when you speak about the effect that this had for a survivor with Only the Stains Remain. And I mean, if you look at that book that kicked off the grief horror for you, I mean, goodness, maybe every time you enter a new season, that first book is the most raw, unflinching look, because this one, I mean, this has to be the nearest to Jack Ketchum's The Girl Next Door. And I think in a sense, it's almost I Spit on Your Grave for survivors of childhood abuse. It's an uncomfortable book. It's an unflinching book. And it never really lets up. And I mean, I think for that reason, people need to know what this is about, going in, because if you're affected by that kind of childhood abuse, if that is something that is gonna, just set you off on your own downward spiral, this might not be the book to read, because it is unflinching, as I said, and it really asks that question, which you literally put in the book, how far you're going to go, because you say to kill a monster, you have to become a monster. So you've got that question almost of, when should one become a monster? Should one ever become a monster? Who gets to deal out justice? It's so heavy, not just in the delivery, not just in the content, but thematically and in terms of the questions about humanity and right and wrong that you'll invariably ask yourself.
Yeah, that book is, like you said, like the first book of the new season is unflinching. That one is, like, when I wrote it, I was chatting. I was at the time I was doing podcasts with Kev Harrison and Nat TC Parker, and like I sent it to them when I'd written it, and I was just like, I've written this book. It's quite dark, but I just need to send it to people that I know and I can trust. And I was just like, could you just read? And they both read it and came back to me and were just like, bloody hell, that's dark, but it's good. And I was like, okay, that's kind of what I needed to know. And then I was just like, right, I'm not one about standing back and letting moments pass. I was just like, right, let's just go with it. This is how it's going to be. And yeah, for anyone listening, it deals with issues of, well, a child abuse that happens, and the child at the time is now a adult and coming to terms with what happened and how to seek revenge. I think quite a lot of the reviews talk about how, although it's dark and twisty and graphic and horrible, none of the actual abuse happens on the page. I take you there, but I don't we don't need to know that. We don't. That's not something I need to read or write about or get my head into, is the actual physical act of it. So I take the reader there, but I don't show it, which I think for the book has been a real positive, because lots of people are like, oh, I'm not going to read that. And then someone will jump in and be like, no, you have to read it. It's really good. I'm blowing my own trumpet here, but they're like, it's really good. But, none of that stuff happens on the page. So, don't worry. There's no kind of graphic details of the actual acts. And that's what I wanted to do when I was writing it. I was like, I don't want to glorify that, because like Splatterpunk and all that sometimes delves into that aspect. And I was like, it may be nominated for a Splatterpunk Award, but I'm not. That's not what I want to be, and that's not what I want to write about. And I'm not glorifying the action in any way. I'm kind of glorifying the revenge, and that is on the page for everybody to read. But yeah, it's like you said, no holds barred. It is what it is. And yeah, readers and reviewers have all said it's kind of like a spit on my grave, kind of spit on your grave. I can't remember what it's called. Spit on your grave?
I spit on your grave.
Yeah.
If you had I spit on my grave. That's like the horror comedy version.
Yeah, that too. But yeah, like it's received really good praise. Lots of people. And I'm going to let you into a little secret here. Lots of people have said that book is Ketchum-esque. I think Eric LaRocca said it as well. I had not read any Jack Ketchum before I wrote that book. And because lots of people mentioned it, I was like, oh, I'm going to read some of his. And obviously I didn't know, because I came to him quite late. I didn't know much about him, so I was just like, I reached out to Josh and just said, what's the best book he's written? And then he came back and was like, well, the book you got to read is The Girl Next Door. And I was just like, okay. And I read that, and I was like, wow. I think that's one of the only books I've ever wanted to reach inside the book and actually help the person in it. Like physically, I just had to, and then I was just like, wow, that's good. But yeah, so I don't want people thinking, oh, I've just copied Jack Ketchum, because I honestly never read him before, and I've read a few since. Like is it Red? I like that one. That was quite good.
It is, yeah. But I think it's Ketchum-esque, and you have the same feelings in that it is an uncomfortable read, but. So in terms of the reaction, in terms of the delivery, there's similarities, but in terms of the content, I mean, no one could correctly say that you had copied Ketchum and The Girl Next Door. I mean, it's clearly very distinct, and that's more about, a group of children next door discovering her, and that's also based off a real life case as well. The Sylvia Likens case, whereas what you're doing here, it's grounded in reality, it's grounded in real cases, but there's not one specific case. And anyway, if people had an issue with that, it's like, well, read Let's Go Play at the Adams by Mendel Johnson, which was written before The Girl Next Door, which is based off the Sylvia Likens case. And you know what? Both books are good at what they do. You're allowed to have similar books, but I don't know if I mentioned this before, but because you were talking about actually you take people right up to the moment. And so for me, that really reminded me of Not Forever, But For Now by Chuck Palahniuk, because that's exactly what he does. A lot of people said with that book, wow, it was very sexually explicit. And he's like, actually, that was your mind.
Yeah, it wasn't.
I just used euphemisms like having it off.
Yeah.
He didn't describe any of that detail. So it's like, Chuck did with Not Forever But For Now. It's pretty similar in terms of what Texas Chainsaw Massacre did, which you mentioned earlier with the original film. You know, you feel that you've watched this horrendous, gory, graphic thing. No, you've got choice shots and you've got different cutaways, and so you're almost tricked into thinking you witnessed more than you did, because it's your mind, it's your fucked up little mind that's filled in the details and done that. So
You're watching
don't
what you
blame
want to
Ross
watch.
Jeffery, blame yourself, you rungun.
And talking about, like, this loops back to the kind of your hybrid kind of the bit we were just talking about, because with that book, Only the Stains Remain, it's set in England, and I was trying to be clever here because I think there's only one mention of where it's set, and I believe it's the Forest of Dean. I think I'm really stretching my brain here to think, but I think it's the Forest of Dean. But then, and I was just like, this was this kind of segue between the America coming to the UK kind of writing, and quite a lot of the names that I used are almost kind of American. So you've got like Jude and Kyle and like Abraham. I think Abraham, I can't remember, but like a few of the others. And I kind of tried to just be like, okay, I'm going to write right here, but I'm going to hopefully link in with some American names just to kind of keep that audience thinking it's like that, because I don't really go into much detail other than that. But then I also kept the language quite like American English, and like the spellings kind of like similar as well, because I was just like, I don't know, I think I was maybe a little nervous about just bringing it completely as a kind of like shock to the system for any readers that had read my other work and were carrying on. But yeah, and then after that I was just like, sod it, let's just go with it being in England. But yeah, so that was kind of probably the only kind of hybrids that I've done, but I did it sneakily.
I think in terms of the hybrid, and it might upset some British people, but I do think that the English language is becoming more fluid and more of a hybrid, even amongst British people and within Britain. I think it's because of probably the influence of American television and American films within the mainstream culture. And so you're seeing, a lot of younger people, they're naming their children essentially American names, or perhaps after American characters. And I mean, even in my novel, House of Bad Memories, you have the Chav sister, to put it in probably not politically correct terms, and one of her children is called Kanye. Well, you can guess where that came from, but that's exactly... Her children are called Kanye and Caden, but that's exactly, it fits what somebody like the sister Jade would have called her children. And so I think even you can set a book in the UK and you can have particularly a younger character use some Americanisms, because it's what happens.
Yeah.
If you've got a bunch of mates around, maybe they'll take the piss out of them. Oh, Ross thinks he's a bloody Yank. All right. So,
yes, this is true.
And that's what I try to do. If I have a detail that I think somebody will criticize, I've been doing this particularly with the latest one that I'm writing on. I'll actually call it out in the text, or I'll have a character criticize it, and it's like, you see, did it deliberately.
It's not a mistake.
Well, I've already said on record in this podcast, every grammatical mistake is a deliberate choice. It's on record. What an arrogant thing to say. It's a good catch-all. It means if I have made a mistake, you don't know.
Yeah, and you can just refer people to this episode, and then it's just a constant loop.
Yeah, which will hopefully help with your book sales, so everybody's happy.
Everyone is happy.
But I mean, if we shift forward to I Died Too, but They Haven't Buried Me Yet, this was one where it took some of the kind of thematic concerns and the grief horror feeling, but I feel it put it in a more conventional story form, shall we say. But the controversy in inverted commas with this one is, of course, the homophobia and transphobia that's throughout the book. You know, when you've got one of your central characters,
Yeah.
you know, you talk about the Eric LaRocca school of trying to get cancelled. This is it right here. So, I mean, let's talk about the genesis of this book. Let's talk about just your approach in knowing that you were going to hit upon topics that are extremely uncomfortable and they need to be handled with some care.
Okay. So this is the book that I thought I was going to be cancelled over. Obviously, homophobia is a massive topic. One that I see in my daily work. You know, we have guests that come in that, you know, are either transitioning, gay, lesbian, you know, whatever they are. And I see on a daily basis how they are victimized, abused, and basically treated like shit by other people that access our center because they're different, and, you know, these bigoted idiots that we have don't accept them. So quite a lot of the dialogue that is in the book is things that I have heard firsthand through my work, where I work. And just a caveat on that is that I don't allow that to happen in my place of work. I rectify it and I ban people and I put people straight and tell people to be, you know, accepting of all people. We have to be accepting of you bigot. So the genesis of this story is that I just had the title of the book in my head, and it was just that line, and it had just come to me one night, and I was just like, that is a brilliant line. And obviously, because I've been writing grief, I was just like, that could fit so well with something. I just need something to work on. And then doing my thing with my journal and my notebook, I started making notes and came up with a story. And then someone called Josh Malerman, I was having a chat with him, and I said, I'm about to write a book. It was a bit of a drunken chat. We'd had a few whiskeys. And
is this the Josh Malerman or just someone called Josh Malerman?
This is
you haven't
Josh
specified. Okay, so
Josh Malerman.
the Josh Malerman.
And we'd had a few drinks and we were just chatting, and we've been on the phone for a couple of hours, and then I just said to him, I said, I've got an idea for a book. And basically I told him the book from the start to the finish, and because I had it all written down in my journal, I was just like, this is the book. And he was like, fucking hell. He's like, you got to write that. And then I didn't know because we were both drunk. So I was like, okay. And then a couple of weeks later, he messaged me and said, I've got an idea for a book. And I was like, oh, okay, cool. But he didn't. And then I just got the ... on the text. And it was just like, oh, he's still writing. Like, what's he writing? And then it came up and he said, when are you thinking of writing it? And I was like, well, I'm going to start writing in a couple of weeks. And he said, oh, okay, I'm going to do it as well. And then this spawned the writing a novel alongside Josh together, where we would send each other every 10,000 words that we wrote, we would send it. And this was whilst he was writing Instance Around the House. So, which is absolutely incredible. I had the pleasure of reading it as he wrote it. So it was kind of like serialized, and it was phenomenal. And like, it's just, and then like he was reading mine, I was reading his, every 10,000 words all the way through. And then I was like, because obviously I kind of knew his story. He was telling me bits, but like most of it I didn't know. And then as we're drawing to a close, I'm like, oh, I'm almost finished. I was like, I'll send you the 10K before the final 10. And he went, I've got no idea where this is going. And I was like, I told you. Like, we had a conversation. I told you the whole story. And he was like, I just don't remember it. And I was just like, well, if I've told you the story and you don't remember it, and I've got you this far, then like I know I'm doing something right. And then it was amazing. It was an amazing experience. All finished, all done. He loved it, and then we were just discussing then after the book. I was really concerned at the time with releasing it because of the subject matter. Obviously, being a white, straight, male, privileged, working class background, but I am privileged in the state of things. And I was just like, I've written it, and I believe it's a great book. And then we had many conversations about it, and he was like, look, yes, it deals with difficult subject matter, but that's the characters. He was like, look, anybody that knows who you are would know that these are not your thoughts. These are the thoughts of the characters. He was like, sometimes you've just got to like believe in the book. He's like, if you want to try and get some sensitivity readers to read it and see what they think. And I was like, right, okay. So I reached out to some sensitivity readers. They read it. I had a mixed bag. I had some people that said they didn't like it. I had some of the sensitivity readers that read it and thought it was absolutely brilliant, which didn't really help because I was hoping that they would all be on the same page. And then I was just like, right, okay, with books, you're never going to write a book everybody's going to love. And I was just like, I believed in the book. I had people that I'd sent it to as sensitivity readers that believed in it. I was just like, right, okay. And I'd also had sensitivity readers for Tome, which deals heavily with racism. I know what the score is because I do skate the very thin line. And like Gabino Iglesias had read Tome and was like as a sensitivity reader, and he also blurbed it, so that shows what he believed in it. But then I was like, right, okay, let's go. I'm not afraid of releasing books. I believe books should be challenging and they shouldn't be censored in a way that you shouldn't write about that because you're not of that whatever definition you want to give, whether you can't write about racism because you're white and you're writing about black people, or I really struggle with that because I've had people say to me that I shouldn't write women characters because I'm not a woman, but quite a lot of my protagonists are all women, and I have lots of people say that I write women really well. It's just how it is. But this is the book that I was very nervous about, and I was just like, right, let's just go for it. And I sent it to Clash, and I contacted Clash because I'd never worked with them before, didn't kind of like really know anybody there, and I sent it to them, and then Christoph, who runs it with Lisa, kind of came back and said, I'd really be interested in to read that if I sent her like an email first. And he said, oh, because I've read quite a lot of your work and I really like you and I've always wanted to work with you. And I was just like, oh, crap, like this. Then that made me feel good, because I was like just sitting here in my house being like, I don't think people know who I, because I don't go to conventions. I can't afford to go to conventions. I don't really enter into much kind of like chatter online and stuff. I mean, I'm cordial and stuff, but I don't think that people in the know who I am. And I'm quite a humble person, so I just don't bother kind of like talking that much. But the fact that because I knew who Clash were, and I was just like, oh yeah, I think this book would fit with them. I spoke to Josh, and Josh was like, yeah, that's kind of, that'd be right up their street. And then he came back and he was just like, yeah, I'd love to kind of read it, because I'd really like to work with you. And then I was like, oh, okay, like, cool, I'll send it. And then literally, it's probably one of the fastest acceptances I've had of a book. And he came back and was like, yeah, I love it. I'm going to go with it. And I was like, are you okay with all this kind of stuff? Because it might have a bit of blowback. And he was just like, yeah. He said, the novel's brilliant. He said, I want it. Like, we're going to publish it. And then that kind of gave me the kind of a bit of relief around it, because I was really nervous. And also watching, like we just discussed, Eric just be absolutely assassinated by everyone. And like, yeah, I was just like, and he's of that community, and he's writing a book, and then he also just got absolutely slayed by that community for writing about characters that, are dark and twisty. So I was just like, okay, that's given me like a bit of confidence. And then it went forwards and sold a lot of copies. Was, the amount of books that it has reached through the reach of Clash, and like gone into bookstores and Barnes and Nobles, and the numbers that Clash have shared with me of how well it's done, I'm blown away by it, because I thought it might end my career. But yeah, and I love the book. I love it. And, I've got a film and TV agent that's shopping it. He loves it, thinks it's brilliant. And, I'm just grateful to have I think it's the point, I'm saying career, like, I don't like using that with my writing, because it makes me sound really lofty when I'm not. But like, I was at a point of my writing career where I could take that chance, and I felt confident enough in my ability to do it and be like, sod the rules, let's just go with it and see where it leads. And it's doing well. Like, some people hate it, some people absolutely love it. And, I get 5-star reviews, I get 1-star reviews, I get 4-star, like, it's just all over the place. And I'm just grateful that it's out there and people are connecting with it, even if you don't like it. Like, I think the subject matter is something you should read. And a lot of people have commented that they don't like the homophobia, the bigoted view of the protagonist in it. And he's not a likable character. He doesn't have much to himself other than his bigotedness. But that is the character that I wrote. And there are people in this world that are exactly like that character. And to shield yourself from it, to be like, oh, that's unbelievable because nobody's like that, then I'm sorry, you are completely mistaken. It's just, I write raw words on the page, and, that is, in my opinion, some of the people that I've met.
Yeah, I mean, it's funny for people to come up to you and say, oh, I don't like that character. It's like, well, good. Yeah. You're not meant to. I didn't think while reading it, oh, fuck me, Ross really wants us to like this guy. What a lad. I would imagine the more controversial point will be much like all of your books. You add a little bit of spice at the end, let's say. I'm thinking, how can I say this as broadly as possible?
Yes.
And I would say it was a decision as to how you delivered that spice. That would be the controversial point. That would be the point that I think would divide people more.
I think that has gone down remarkably well from the people that I have spoken to, but also it has not gone down well. But good writing divides opinion, and well, that's what I believe anyway. So so I'm doing a good job. Like, if people hate that character, good, because that's how I wrote him, to be hated. It's just, like, it's a great book, and it's one of the books that I've written that I actually spoke to my children about, like, when I was writing it, because they come in sometimes and see me writing, so they were just asking about it, and I just gave them the cliff notes to it. I didn't tell them everything about it, and that's the one book I've written that they both say they want to read, and I'm just like, no, not yet. I'm like, maybe many years down the line you can have a read of it, but not yet. But yeah, it's an interesting book, and with that book as well, like, I've started to, if you're a reader of my fiction, you'll start to see tiny Easter eggs in each of my books. So, for instance, I wrote, when I started basing them all in the UK, I wrote Devil's Pocketbook, so not excluding Only the Stage Remain, but when I proper cemented, yes, they're going to be in Britain. In the Devil's Pocketbook, there's a character in it called Eric. In I Die Too, But They Haven't Buried Me Yet, the grief support group talk about Eric going to Paul Perot, which is the link to Devil's Pocketbook. And then in Harvesting the Nightmare Fields, there's a character that pops up to see Abe, who's this farmer, who is one of the characters from the grief support group. And then there's just these little little tokens that I add into each book that link it somewhat to something else, which I really like. I don't know if everybody else likes it, but I like building the Jeffrey verse, as I like to call it, into these little books now. It's quite entertaining.
It's so funny to hear you say that, because the last time we spoke, I had read Only the Stains Remain, but I hadn't read the Devil's Pocketbook. But since I've started reading the Devil's Pocketbook, and when Paul Perot came up, I thought, I swear you've mentioned Paul Perot in a different book before, but it's like, did you just mention it in an interview? But it was so specific because, during my childhood, I went to Paul Perot a lot. We often had family holidays in the kind of Loo, Paul Perot area of Cornwall. So, yeah, I think you're referencing Paul Perot in multiple books here, but yeah, only now through this conversation has that been
Finally
confirmed. So, Paul Perot is part of the Ross Jeffery universe.
Yes, I don't own the place, but yeah, it's in my books.
Not yet. No, we need your film agent to get you a few of those lucrative deals, and then perhaps you can become the mayor of Paul Perot. But we are coming up to the time that we have together today. Once again, we could have spoken for even longer. That's just the way that it goes. But before we end, I want to know what you're working on next. But it's a question where I know the answer, because we're doing something not exactly together, but we got something going on. So what's next for you?
So we got something cooking, and this came about from our last conversation, and also from kind of what I've shared about the kind of writing exercise that I did with Josh. So I'm in September. I'm going to be starting a new book, which I've already started sketching in my pad. Got my wife to write the title card, so that's all set in stone. That is going to be the next book, and it's called The Reluctant Executioner. And that's kind of, again, so I've written a couple of books now that are a bit sci-fi, so this might be my sci-fi era, but none of them have come out yet. They are being shopped currently, but I'm entering a bit of a sci-fi horror world, and this one's set around the kind of urban legend myth of the kind of Philadelphia experiment, where a boat vanished, reappeared, and follows the kind of story of a sailor that was on that was then kind of used to carry out some type of assassinations throughout the modern world history. It's a very epic sounding book. I'm very excited about it, and if I can pull it off, it'll be brilliant. But I believe I'm bringing somebody else along for the ride who is also going to start a book in September with me, and we're going to share our progress. I don't know who that is. Do you know?
Well, I have a feeling that person might be called Michael David Wilson.
Yes.
Which is me, for anyone who's listening for the first time and can't remember who the fuck is this guy. And so at the moment, I've been kind of maniacally working away on another novel because I set the aim to finish that by September. And then I thought, well, I'll start another one then. This is how it goes. There's no kind of stopping. It's like you finish one, you move on to the next. And so then when we both saw, okay, we're starting in September, we thought, why don't we do something with this? Why don't we document it? And specifically, I was quite inspired, but also just creatively intrigued about this way that when you're planning, you write 1 to 2 sentences for each chapter. That's your plan. Whereas I write reams of pages, and I thought, well, why don't I try this method? So yeah, that's exactly what I'm going to be doing. So we're going to be starting that in September. We're going to be exchanging words. We're going to be documenting it in some way. We're still kind of going back and forth on that. So you've got something from your sci-fi era. I've got something from my set in Japan era, and we're going to see what on earth happens. But yeah, incredibly exciting.
Yeah, I'm really looking forward to it because I just love trying something different all the time. Although I'm going to be doing the same thing, but like it's with somebody else, so it's different, and it's going to be I can't wait to see what you, because also like doing this with a different writer is also just seeing like your process and how it works, and kind of like, because I just love learning stuff from different writers that I admire, and like, so just working with you and like being able to be like seeing your polished early draft, but being like, oh, okay, that's how he writes and that's what he does, and like it just really intrigues me. And also I get to buy a new vinyl record if I don't have one, which is also another wondrous thing. I need to work out what soundtrack it's going to be, but yeah, I'm very excited. And I've already shared with you, obviously, a couple of pictures from my journal of what is in, well, what we're going to be looking at. But I think this week now, because I've got that book out of the way, I'm going to start doing my scaffolding 2-sentence structure and try and see so I can get ready. So when you've finished your book, we can just go, right, let's go. And just, I just want it to be fun and exciting, and I'm pretty sure it's going to be.
Absolutely. Well, talking about fun and exciting, this has been fun and exciting, but we are all out of time. So before you go, of course, where can listeners and viewers connect with you?
Quite easily. If you type my name into Google, I appear everywhere. Ross Jeffery, author. I'm on Blue Sky and Instagram are the only 2 social medias that I am on. And that's, again, Ross Jeffery, author. I also have a MailChimp thingy mailing list I'm so rubbish at it. I can't even remember what it's called, but I've got one of those. It's called Horror Slices. It's linked on my website, so you can sign up to that. And I will desperately try to use it more. And maybe when we start doing this project, I can have content to actually put on there, because currently all my content is tied up in being shipped out to places, so I don't really have any to share. So I haven't written anything, but you can find me there. All the previous newsletters are available. And yeah, that's it really. Find me online.
All right. Well, thank you once again for chatting with me.
No, thank you very much for having me.
Thank you so much for listening to Ross Jeffery on This Is Horror. Join us again next time when I will be chatting with Cat Day about all things pseudopod. But if you would like to get that and every other episode ahead of the crowd, please become our patron at patreon.com/thisishorror. You'll also be able to submit questions for future interviewees. And coming up soon, we will be chatting to Mick Garris, CJ Lead, and Ronald Melfi. So if you have a question for any of them, the place to be is patreon.com/thisishorror. Okay, before I wrap up, a quick advert break.
It was as if the video had unzipped my skin, slunk inside my tapered flesh, and become one with me.
From the creator of This Is Horror comes a new nightmare for the digital age, The Girl in the Video by Michael David Wilson. After a teacher receives a weirdly arousing video, his life descends into paranoia and obsession. More videos follow, each containing information no stranger could possibly know. But who's sending them, and what do they want? The answers may destroy everything and everyone he loves. The Girl in the Video is The Ring meets Fatal Attraction for the iPhone generation. Available now in paperback, ebook, and audio.
Cosmovorous, the debut cosmic horror novel by R.C. Housen, is now available as an audio experience. Featuring an original dark synthwave score, this story will take you to the next level of terror. Come hear the story that readers are calling Barker Meets Lovecraft, a phantasm-style cosmic horror adventure, and a full-bore, unflinching, nihilistic nightmare. Cosmovorous, the audiobook by R.C. Housen. Come listen if you dare.
Now, another way to support the podcast and to get a little pick-me-up of inspiration and writing advice is to follow us over on Instagram, TikTok, and YouTube. Now, our handle at each of those places is @ThisIsHorrorPodcast, and we post video clips from these very conversations. Now, recently we have shared videos from the likes of Jason Pargin, Chuck Palahniuk, David Dastmalchian, Eric LaRocca, Joe Hill, and Delilah S. Dawson. So if that sounds like the type of thing that you are into, if you want writing advice, if you want little anecdotes from writers' lives, head over to @ThisIsHorrorPodcast on Instagram, TikTok, and YouTube. Support us and be inspired. Well, that about does it for another episode of This Is Horror. So until next time with Cat Day, take care of yourselves, be good to one another, read horror, keep on writing, and have a great, great day.
This is Horror Podcast.